This is a quick review about custom objects in JavaScript. If you've taken JavaScript 1 with me, Intro to JavaScript, we did this in the very last week, and it's usually the end of an entry-level JavaScript course. Now, what makes JavaScript special is that it comes with some default objects, things like the date object, a string object, an array object, but it also allows you to create custom objects. So in this last week of the first course, we can start by looking at how an object is created. Now, we've done JavaScript object notation if you've taken that course. We'll be doing it a lot in this course. And that's a good way to get accustomed to the formatting of the JavaScript objects. In this case, we have a instance of a new object. So we have Bob, which equals a new object. And then we can add properties using the dot syntax. So if you remember, we had one of the objects we investigated in the first JavaScript course. And if you've had an entry-level course, you probably did some work with the date object. So I can do something, time of day equals new date. So that's a new date object. This object's pre-built into JavaScript. And we can access some of its values simply by doing a dot syntax and getting the values that we want. So this time of day dot get hours would give us the time of day and hour format for right now. But that's a pre-built object. By using the new object, we can create a custom object. And that's very much what we'll be doing in this React course, is creating custom objects that we can reuse. I say this because most of the web applications that are built have some sort of data structure that will have the dot syntax properties added to them. Think a web application that has any kind of storage at all. You're going to want to store an object. So part of this course is getting into storage and the many methods we can make both local and external storage. In the course we'll be dealing with Firebase a little bit, which is an external database software service that Google provides. So right here, we've just shown a pre-built object. Now we have Bob, which is a custom object. And we've grabbed bob.name and bob.age. So if I were to console.log Bob in the constructor, you would see, I'm going to go to my developer tools here, and you would see an object, and there's the object. So I can reference each of these objects just simply by doing bob.name. And we're creating prototypical properties of those objects. So that's the original declaration. This is the literal notation where we can create a variable that equals properties that are key value pairs with JavaScript object notation. That's the literal notation where JavaScript object notation comes from. So if you want to practice, you can work with the same object here and work on your own, and you can say something like Susan.profession equals nurse, something like that. So we can create our own properties with these with the constructor. Now the next thing I'd like to show you is how to access more complicated values. And in this case we've got a dog that equals species bulldog, age 3, color brown. So if we wanted to get the value of the color, I would just call out dog.color. You can also use the bracket notation, but I'd prefer you use the dot syntax moving forward. So this is dog.species, which is also equal to dog.species. Notice the quotations inside the object and the value. So all these things equal each other. So if we say x equals species, then dog x would equal bulldog. That said, we can use loops to get all values of our objects. So if I did something like for x in NYC, I could console.log x is, I'm going to do this in quotes, x is plus x plus and NYC x is, and then I'll just do plus NYC x. Okay, so that's just a simple for in loop. We can use a few different types of loops to deal with this, but that's a quick and easy one. And now I can work inside my exercise here, and I can go to my console.log and see that X's full name and NYCX is New York City. X is mayor and NYCX is Michael Bloomberg. X is population, etc. So that's a little bit about objects and how to grab them, not only individually, but through a loop. Now the last review and or initial instruction, if you haven't seen this before, in this object folder is something called prototype. And in this, I'd like to teach you about the this keyword. So I have an object called employee. In fact, it's a function, as you can see. I'm not using the arrow syntax at all. But if you look at console.log and we do type of dot employee, and we're going to just log that. And then I'm going to go to prototype, and we'll check out our console. And I'll hit refresh, and let me make sure I did it correctly. Excuse me. That's right, I have to do parentheses. So this would be type of employee, and we've got to make sure everything that's open is closed. Now we can hit refresh, and you see it's a function, but it's also an object. So when I go to this kind of thing, you see I have arguments, name, job title, and born, and I've created a new instance of that function and or object as Fred Flintstone Caveman 1970. So these are the three. The name is job title, born, etc. And by passing it to this, I can write console.log fred.name. And that would give me the value of Fred Flintstone. So let's hit refresh on this, and you see Fred Flintstone in my log. Now, what's interesting is that we're going to go into prototyping in just a second. And in this case, even though I have three properties with values that are variables that come from a function call, you see the new instance of that function. You can see that I only have three properties, and I can add new properties at the end. So this is document write Fred salary. But that doesn't mean that employee has a salary. No, it's just this one instance of Fred, which is an employee who has a salary now. So that's an example of prototyping off an existing object. In the next series of videos, I'm going to review prototyping in JavaScript. And this will all start to make sense the more you use it. But for now, it's about understanding a little bit about how JavaScript works with objects.